Hello, my name is Roger Harrison, the course unit leader for IIE. It's been a couple of weeks since I last gave a video update, and I'm aware that we're coming towards the end of week 5 in this unit, and this is when the midterm assignment is going to be released. So naturally, of course, many of you are starting to feel a bit anxious, and I'm sure lots of you want to do well in the midterm assignment. Hopefully you managed to access the feedback which was sent to you by email to do with the wiki group assignments, and overall I was delighted with some of the assignments that were submitted for that small piece of group work. The midterm assignment is very different, of course, and I'm sure many of you are familiar with the assignment process and the way in which you can access the assignment, and then by looking at the course calendar you'll be able to determine when the assignment needs to be submitted. So in the course unit, the first few weeks we talked about the information for public health, and we covered topics such as health surveillance, demography and public health informatics. We then moved on towards weeks 4 and 5 to think more about the evidence base for public health. And often this has been taken over by a discourse on evidence-based practice, which rightly so, has very much focused on evidence needed to determine courses of actions for individuals. But clearly we're here in public health, we're also dealing with groups of people, so we need to ensure that we're using evidence that can be applied or is based on groups of people. Now, of course, for many things we either don't have the luxury or the funding or the time, nor do we have the capability to be able to randomise different people to different exposures within an environment, for example. Though there are some really good examples of how randomised controlled trials have been used to obtain evidence for population health, and I'd really encourage you to look at some of the readings and the additional readings just to read one or two of these examples. But we also touched on a range of other study designs which you may not have considered really in terms of their value to adding vital information to help us make better decisions for people now and in the future or in different circumstances. And here, of course, I'm talking about natural experiments, and John Bradford Snow is very much renowned for the natural experiment where he simply just cut off the water supply to a particular part of London to see if it would improve people's health, and of course it did. We also touched on things like the ecological studies, very, very, very valuable studies, and ones which can be carried out relatively easily given the fact that there's a lot of country level information which is now collected around the world. But we also brought your attention to things such as the ecological fallacy, and these are really important that when you're looking at any type of study that you're aware of and that you're able to carry out a critique. Now, when we're talking about evidence for public health, we need to think about the social determinants of health and how those may have been or how they haven't been included in the capturing of evidence and also in the interpreting of that evidence. So I think it's a fascinating subject. Please do follow up some of the readings and the additional readings, and every week there's there are some really interesting articles which are coming out which either help explain some of the methods for evidence for public health, or they show examples of how these different study designs are really saving lives, basically. So when the midterm assignment is released, make sure that you spend as much time as possible going through and carefully reading the assignment. Read it several times before you even think you understand what the assignment is about. And then start to identify some of the key words, some of the little hints or suggestions that are within the assignment question and also within the assignment brief. The assignment brief very much tells you and tells the examiner what is being expected, and it will give you a sense of the direction in terms of the scope of different aspects of the assignment that you might wish to touch upon. Reflect on the course materials. The assignment is based on this course unit, so we're going to expect you to be using some of the learning that has been covered in the course unit. But as I've included in the brief, don't just stick to examples that have been covered here. Show evidence of further reading, either by the additional readings on the course unit or by some of the own research and referencing that you've been doing yourself. And don't lose small marks just because you didn't proofread it or you didn't present some information in a clear and appropriate way. And if you do bring in references, make sure that you do your referencing properly as well and list it at the end. And of course, be mindful of the submission date. Don't miss the submission date. And if you have any problems around meeting that, any ill health or any other circumstances, do make sure that you let the MPH administration team know. So I wish you well with the assignments. Keep on keeping up to date with the studies, and once the assignment has been submitted, hopefully you'll feel a bit more refreshed to then continue with the final half of the week. Thank you. Bye-bye.